Dragons. Dragons are cool. You know what's cooler? Politics.
With the COVID, with.
Now, what if we merge both together? Well, wonder no more, because that's exactly what Bioware sought to achieve all the way back in 2002, which resulted in Dragon Age. Dragon Age is a video game franchise spanning over 4 games, with a new one that just came out about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Anyway, some of you might be wondering, what is Dragon Age all about? Well, there really is no straight answer to that. Some may say it's about all the political intrigue. Some may say it's all about the unique lore and world building. Some may say, like any other Bioware game, it's a dating sim. Thing is, it's practically all of the above. The games have a masterful balance of a lot of different things, be it humor, darkness, despair, hope, artistic inconsistencies, because everyone loves undergoing plastic surgeries every 10 years. So, today, we will talk about the best game in the series, which is undoubtedly Dragon Age Inquisition. Dragon Age Inquisition is the third entry in the series, which, despite selling like hotcakes, seemingly has divided a lot of fans. So, today, I will tell you why I think Dragon Age Inquisition is a really good game. So, without any further delay, let's begin. Dragon Age Inquisition is set about 10 years after the events of Dragon Age Origins, and about 2 years after the events of Dragon Age 2. You play as generic human, elf, Kunari or dwarf number 55. And just like Origins, each species comes with their own respective backstory. Not as in-depth as Dia2's backstory or even Origins' Origins, but still. Apart from species, you can also choose what class your character belongs to, which determines your overall gameplay experience. There's 3 classes to choose from: Mage, which is all about magic; Warrior, which is about the good old-fashioned way of bonking things; and finally Rogue, which is the same as Warrior, except you act like a dollar store ninja with some stealth and thievery thrown into the mix. Then comes the character creation. Thankfully, DAI's character creator is relatively decent, with sliders that actually have a decent range, instead of being stuck between 2 very different face shapes with no in-between. But I guess all the face sculpting options came at the cost of hair, because I swear there's not a single good hair option. You know when people joke about Bioware's character creator hair options being filled with 50 different variations of bald? That's not an exaggeration. Legit, almost half of the hair options here are just variations of bald. Anyway, with that little hiccup out of the way, the game begins. As is tradition with the series, the game starts with something going horribly wrong. In this case, it's the nuking of the Temple of Sacred Ashes. You wake up among its ashes. Get it? Ashes of the Temple of Sacred Ashes? Yeah, I'll shut up. Anyway, and soon notice a glowing lady calling out to you. Now, I know we've all been taught not to accept any offerings from strangers, especially if said stranger is a strange glowing lady, but suffice it to say we're in a bit of a predicament here, surrounded by demons and all that, so an exception can be made. Reaching the lady, the screen fades to white, and you seemingly get teleported further away from the center of the wreckage before passing out and being arrested by Inquisition soldiers. Waking up, you discover there's a strange magical mark on your hand, and as previously mentioned, you were arrested by Inquisition soldiers. Well, they aren't technically Inquisition yet, but we'll get there in a minute. Now, seeing as you are the only survivor of the aforementioned nuking, that kind of puts you in an awkward position, because it's not every day someone randomly survives the epicenter of a bombing without a single scratch. So, time for interrogation. Fortunately, it doesn't go that far, because there's something far more important going on right now that requires your attention. Apparently, the nuking of the Sacred Ashes temple somehow created a giant hole in the sky, and demons are pouring out of it. And that strange mark on your hand has something to do with it. So, off we go to do something with it and try and plug the hole, accompanied by Cassandra. This is where we get a glimpse of the new and revamped combat system of DAI. And it's pretty damn good. Most of it is pretty much the same as DA2, but the sound design and animations have been improved a lot, which makes all the hits feel a lot more impactful. The loud tinging every time you parry, or the whirling noises as you swing your blade 360 degrees. Archer is, well, more or less the same. I mean, there's only so much you can add on to shooting stuff from far behind with a bow, unless you add a fucking gun or something, I don't know. Other than that, the biggest improvements are by far the mage attacks. The visuals, the new lighting and more vibrant art style really makes all the attacks pop out and look glorious in action, especially the lightning and fire attacks. It's really satisfying to see so many contrasting colors mashed together, especially when you pull combos with squad mates and everything goes all slow motion. It's magnificent. Now, while the core combat is really good, there are some minor annoyances. Remember how in DA2 the moment combat starts everyone turns into the fucking Flash? Well, it's the complete opposite here. For some reason everyone becomes fucking sloths the moment combat hits. Now, normally this won't be an issue, but some of the enemies are specifically designed to take use of the more open maps. As such, they routinely jump all across the arena, forcing you to run after them. Chances are it'll take you longer to actually chase them down than actually hitting and killing them. Especially these maker-forsaken despair demons that won't stop fucking ballerina dancing halfway across the map. There's also some issues with the upgrade system, but we'll get into that a bit later. For now, getting back to the story. After killing a bunch of demons, we reach a forward camp where we meet the rest of the team, Varric and Egghead. Here we learn that the mark on our hand can seal the smaller holes, also known as fade drifts, all across the map. And since you are the only known person in existence with the mark, you are the only one who can possibly seal the bigger hole in the sky. Guess not everyone's as talented as the hero of Heraldon who can just bonk fade drifts to death and close them. Anyway, we head to the main breach location inside the ruins of the Sacred Ashes Temple. Here's the plan. The rift here could likely seal the big hole. Problem is, it's unstable and not closed properly now. So we gotta open it and then properly close it. Before we can actually do that though, we get some visions and the most nonchalant line delivery in existence.
What's going on here?
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not.
You know what the funny part is? When you actually see this scene proper later on, the delivery is completely different and more emphasized there. Yet here it just sounds like the reaction one would give after smoking a dozen elf fruit joints. Anyway, we open the rift, demons pour in, we politely ask them to return back and leave us in peace, then close the rift, which closes the giant hole in the sky and the game ends. Thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe. Even after all our work, the rift in the sky doesn't fully close. Apparently the hand mark needs more power to fully close the rift. So, before we can start planning on where to gain power from, we need to focus on a much worse issue: politics. See, the nuking of the Sacred Ashes Temple didn't just create the hole, it also killed several people gathered there, including multiple Grand Clerics of the Chantry gathered in an enclave. Too much fallout. Gathered in a conclave to try and bring peace to the Mage Templar war. If you don't know what the Chantry is, it's one of, if not the biggest religious organization in Thedas that a lot of people look up to for guidance. They have these mage circles where mages are supposed to be kept under supervision by Templars so they can stay in and learn in peace and not endanger others. Now, at the end of DA2, our friendly neighborhood abomination, Anders, trolled the Kirkwall Chantry thanks to the mistreatment of the mage circle there at the hands of the Kirkwall Templar Order, which sparked an all-out warfare between all mages and Templars across all of southern Thedas. Obviously, seeing as both factions are supposed to be under the Chantry's guidance, they realize they need to do something for once instead of sitting on their asses and read unrusted fanfiction all day.
Caesarian spear. I don't think he had a spear in the legends. He does in this one. Read the description. Andraste knelt before no man but her maker. But she hadn't counted on the Archon Caesarian. Can Caesarian penetrate the tight-knit defenses of the warrior prophetess? Will she be prepared to face the full blast of his power? Wait a minute.
A conclave was called in the Temple of Sacred Ashes, which also got trolled, killing plenty of high-ranking Chantry members. Chief among them was Divine Justinia, the main leader of the Chantry, which means until the remaining clerics doohickey their way through office politics, there would be no new Divine. But that again is gonna take a lot of time because, well, most of the high-ranking clerics with a lot of power and sway also died at the conclave. Unfortunately for us, we don't have the time to spare because the giant hole in the sky hasn't been fully closed, and who knows what catastrophe it might bring. So, there's only one solution. Rebuild an Inquisition working on its own to fix the world and restore order with or without anyone's permission. So we've declared an Inquisition, but there's still the issue of your mark requiring more power. Obviously the only source of magical power would be the rebel mages or the Templars. Problem is, as of now we neither have enough manpower or the influence to actually approach anyone because, you know, the war didn't really stop as the conclave for peace talks was nuked. Adding fuel to the fire, the Chantry, however divided it might be, is united on denouncing the Inquisition, cutting off any potential help from their end. Put it bluntly, we are entirely on our own now. This is where the game partially begins. Here you're introduced to the war table and the three advisors, Cullen, the military commander, Josephine, the Saul Goodman, and Liliana, my beloved, the spy mistress. These three goofballs will help you with war table missions by providing you three alternate ways to complete them, which in turn offer different rewards and alter the story of how each mission plays out. Now, these missions for the most part don't have any drastic effect on the main storyline, but they add roleplay value. You are meant to be influencing the entirety of Southern Thedas, so these missions let you roleplay how the Inquisition works outside of the stuff that only happens when you're on the field. They're also often used as a way to tie up plot threads or reference events from prior games as well. Like how if you play through the Exiled Prince DLC in Dragon Age 2, you'll get a note from Sebastian offering alliance and aid for Kirkwall if you helped him. Also, a lot of these aren't one-off missions either and instead have overarching stories spreading across multiple missions, like Varric's hunt for a hack writer, the search for some Venatori spy among three distinct people, which turns out to be a logic puzzle at the end. And again, based on how and who you use to complete these missions, changes the end result and the rewards you get. Plus, like I said, while most of these don't have any drastic effect on the main field missions, some of them do bleed into each other. For example, at the end of Crestwood's main quest, its mayor confesses his doohickeyness and runs away. So you can use the war table to find and recapture him for interrogation and judgment. So, it's a pretty good system. Surely they won't find a way to cockblock its enjoyment and turn it into a chore. Yes, majority of these missions have time limits, which may not seem like too bad a thing at first, but as the game progresses, they keep increasing and eventually become comically ridiculous. 17 goddamn hours to contact the hero of Ferelden. I swear I can reach him on foot faster than that. Thank God mods exist. Anyway, beyond those missions, the war table is also used to unlock new playable areas. For now, we don't have much intel beyond Liliana's report about a secluded Chantry cleric named Mother Giselle that may be able to help us deal with the Chantry. So, our first stop is to go where she's currently residing and helping people, the Hinterlands. So, if you don't know, unlike Dragon Age Origins and 2, Inquisition is a fully open world game with multiple maps that you unlock throughout the game. Now, to put it bluntly, the quality of these maps are hit or miss. First off, we have the Hinterlands, the most memed map in the entire game. The common complaint I've heard against it is that there's too many side quests that you get stuck for hours. To that I'd say, nothing's stopping you from going. The main task you were sent here to do takes little time, and once that's done, you can just go and carry on with the main quest and come back later. You're not supposed to do every single side quest the very first chance you get. In fact, the Hinterlands is probably the best map in terms of side quests. There's plenty to do, be it random fetch quests, side quests, or just some good old-fashioned Bioware goofiness. Okay, here's the grave. What do I have to do again? Let's see. Yeah, there it is. Okay, 3 times around the statue on right hand, close enough to brush this. Okay, so this side. Okay, let's do this 3 times. So 1, 2, and oh, it's done. Hey, it worked! Look! There's Grandpa. Screw blood magic, this is how we should bring back the dead. Anyway, Hinterlands, pretty good map. Looks cool, nice scenery, plenty of variety and stuff to do, and a decent way to rack up early crafting materials, S tier. Getting back to the story, you meet up with Mother Giselle, who asks you to meet up with the other Chantry clerics and try to persuade them of the real danger. Was it really necessary bringing us all the way down here to tell us to meet with the Chantry? Couldn't she just have sent a letter for this? Either way, you can't just barge into Orlais' capital in your current state. You need power, you need influence, and that's where these side quests come into play. The more quests you do, the more power you gain. These powers can then be used to unlock further main quests and maps. You might be wondering that this too is meant to needlessly pad the game, and while that may have been the intention, it doesn't really affect too much. The amount of power required for main quests is pretty reasonable, and the process of gaining more power is pretty easy in and out of itself. Just closing rifts alone gives you 1 billion powers, so it's not that bad. There's also influence. As you do quests, you gain influence points, which unlock Inquisition perks that provide a variety of advantages like better buying and selling prices, lockpicking. Why is this an Inquisition perk and not a character skill like before? I have no idea. And a variety of dialogue perks like underground and nobility knowledge that offer additional dialogue or speech checks to handle quests differently.
A partnership gets me your enemies. I need the territory.
What are you doing? He's half the mess in Vashel.
And now his job is recruiting the other. Consider your lands and title requisitioned. You open the bargaining. Think of your immediate options.
Surprising. Disappointing, but also welcome over the alternative.
Won't be hearing from you again.
Be sure to return the favor.
A pretty decent system. There's also agents you can acquire through various means like completing more side quests, blackmailing.
Look, kid, if you can talk an apostate out of her pants in the middle of a war, you got a gift. Use it. Make contacts, get information, and help the Inquisition. Do that, and our lips are sealed.
All right. I can do that. And thanks for going easy on me.
Bribery.
What kind of cut are you getting from the gross? What kind of protection are your suppliers offering? The Inquisition could use someone who can move goods around quietly. We could protect you.
Are you serious? The high and mighty Inquisition needs smugglers. All right. I'm in. Seems like the Inquisition is the safer bet these days.
etc. They can then be used in a couple war table missions for additional rewards, but most importantly they act as living, breathing Inquisition perks that reduce the overall war table missions by 5%. Finally, you can complete a mission that took 10 hours in 9 hours and 30 minutes. Huzzah! Now, to be fair, these 5% decreases do stack upon each other as you keep gaining more and more agents, but even then, as I previously mentioned, these time limits eventually become extremely ridiculous, that the time reductions from these agents literally do not matter. You'd still have to wait hours upon hours for these to complete. Then of course there's XP you can earn, points to level up yourself and your companions. Based on your class, you get completely different sets of skill trees with abilities to put points towards. There's passive upgrades that stay in effect all the time and also provide stat upgrades like constitution, strength, etc. which is a bit of a problem, but we'll get to that. There's also abilities that need to be used manually. These come in various shapes and sizes. There's defensive abilities like barrier, mind blast, shield block, etc. Offensive abilities like electric chain, whirlwind, etc. and other miscellaneous abilities like faith step, war cry, dodge roll. There's also combos, like I previously mentioned. Enemies can be primed with certain abilities like freeze flask or pommel strike and detonated using other abilities like mind blast or whirlwind. It deals more damage and the game goes all slow-mo to showcase all the carnage. So it's a pretty good system. How would they throw some kind of cog in here? Well, for some reason, unlike prior games, core stats are no longer upgradable. They exist, but the only way to actually manually affect them are those passive abilities that I mentioned, which is a bit of a problem because sometimes you may want to upgrade a stat that may or may not be linked to a skill tree that you want to upgrade. It's such a bizarre change. It's like they tried streamlining the system but only made it too obtuse. Putting points into a specific skill is just more difficult now than easy. Other than passive abilities, the only other way to manually affect them would be gear and weapons. Throughout the game you can gather or buy crafting materials which you can use to craft armor, headgear and weapons from various schematics. These materials come in multiple tiers with unique advantages based on whichever slot you put them in. Most notably stat upgrades. And seeing how high some of these numbers can get, it can make you quite comically overpowered if you combine everything right. This isn't essential, of course. The game gives you plenty of lootable gear as rewards for various missions that serve just fine. Regardless of lootable gear, it's good to have the option to custom tweak and craft everything to your liking, especially considering core stat upgrades have been nuked. There's also runes and sigils to add some additional effects to your weapons and armor respectively. Now while runes are understandable, they add a specific type of damage or increased damage for a specific enemy. The sigils are some of the weirdest upgrades I've ever seen. They add one advantage and one disadvantage, except the advantage is almost never worth the disadvantage. Look at this. Plus 10% cold damage for negative 50% every other damage type. Plus 15% front armor for negative 50% every other armor. You might as well add plus 10% damage and a 50% chance for the game to uninstall itself and Andrew Wilson shows up at your doorstep to shoot you in the head. Getting back to the story, once you gain enough power, you can go visit Orlay's capital, Val Royeaux, to talk with the Chantry. As expected, things don't go well and we're left all alone. So we proceed with our original plan. Gain enough power to persuade either the rebel mages or the Templars to help close the hole in the sky. This is one of the first major story choices in the game. Other than deciding who you side with, it changes the secondary antagonist. If you choose the mages, you get Samson, and for the Templars, you get Calpurnia. The quests and story in each case is also drastically different. In the mage's case, a Deventer Magister, Alexius, uses time travel shenanigans to persuade the mages to indenture themselves to him. Meanwhile, the Templars were being manipulated by an envy demon posing as the Lord Seeker. Now, opinions of these two missions are divided. Some like the mages more, some the Templars more. I personally think they are both equally good in different ways. The mage questline is a lot more atmospheric, subdued and tragic as you get to see the terrible future where the breach consumed everything with the Red Cliff Castle in complete disrepair. Alexius, the main villain in this quest, is also a lot more tragic. He did all this in hope that his son's terminal illness can be cured and he won't die. Well, he technically didn't die, but something worse happened to him. Also, we get to see Liliana break a man's neck with her thighs. Peak mission, 10 out of 10. Comparatively, the Templar questline is more personally directed to you, the player, as the main villain here is, as mentioned, an envy demon, hell-bent on taking your identity by exploiting your fears and weaknesses.
Have it. Take her to the gallows.
The people will turn against a desperate demon.
I will clear their doubt.
It's more action-oriented with more bombastic fights as you retake control of the Templar stronghold and defeat the envy demon. Once that's done, you finally gain enough power to seal the breach.
My back! Oh, my back!
Solus confirms the heavens are scarred but calm. The breach is sealed. We've reports of lingering rifts, and many questions remain. But this was a victory.
A few moments later.
Forces approaching! To arms!
We must get to the gates.
Obviously, closing it wasn't enough, because the real big bad shows up. Corypheus. Both Alexius and the Envy Demon were working for him. He also has a pet red lyrium dragon. Knowing there's no direct way to defeat him yet, we promptly sacrifice our crack den to escape. Which leads to one of my favorite moments in the entire series, the Dawn Will Come musical number. This song isn't just a throwaway musical for one scene. It holds significance throughout the entire game, as you'll notice its medley is utilized in a lot of other tracks as the main leitmotif, most notably the main theme. Its lyrics, while dedicated to the Chantry's faith, are almost poetic in their relation to your journey throughout the game. In recent years, many have chosen to shun this song, calling it too cheesy or Chantry propaganda. I respectfully disagree. The whole concept of people coming together in a common cause, feeling a sense of hope in the face of tragedy, is a main theme of the entire game, heck, the entire DS series as a whole. And this scene perfectly encapsulates that. The song may be chant related, but that's not the point. The point is how it unites so many people irrespective of what their beliefs are. This isn't the first time this has been done either. In Origins, Liliana sings an elven song about death, which is also meant to provoke a sense of tranquility in the face of uncertainty, and in a similar way, the origin of the song isn't as important as what it represents or symbolizes. It may not be everyone's cup of tea, but I don't think that makes it bad. Not everything is meant for everyone. To me, this song holds a special meaning because of what it symbolizes about both in relation to the story and themes of the game, as well as its general meaning on its own. The music in this game in particular deserves some additional praise on its own, and I'll save that for later. Getting back to the story. With the crack den gone, we need a new place to stash our stuff if we are to have a chance at defeating Corypheus, which is where Solus helps. What's better than a crack den? A cocaine den. Now, obviously an upgrade of this scale deserves some formality. So from now on, you get the title of Inquisitor, which is symbolized by this cool sword that you never actually get to use in-game. Anyway, this is where the game really begins. Now you're free to explore and unlock all the locked open world maps and gain some new unique abilities. Most notably, Mark of the Rift, a power limited to just the Inquisitor. Think of it as a tactical nuke. Drop it on enemies and it deletes every lesser enemy and deals heavy damage to tougher ones, like Pride Demons or Greater Shade Demons. It also uses a separate focus bar than the usual mana or stamina that normal abilities use. So you can't spam it as much, and as such you need to be more tactical about its usage. There's also specializations which add an extra skill tree, and each class can choose from their own unique sets of specializations, like warriors getting access to Templar and Reaver, mages getting access to necromancy and Knight Enchanter, etc. These combined with some of the existing abilities can make you comically overpowered, especially when combined with companions because they too get a unique specialization each. Speaking of companions, let's talk about them. As is the case with any Bioware game, the companions and crew/advisors are by far the best parts of the game. Each of them offer a unique perspective to the mission with how different their backgrounds have been. Dorian being a Tevinter resident who is wary of his country's mistakes, learning to take a stand and try helping improve his homeland. Vivienne, probably one of the most underrated characters, a mage and court enchanter for Olay's Empress, which obviously means she has to keep a stern personality up front, but deep down she genuinely cares about everyone.
The destruction of the library. It's a tragic waste.
Actually, I meant the elves. To build an entire empire on the foundation of magic.
So did the Imperium. Although we haven't reached the entire libraries in the Fade stage yet.
The elves trusted completely that the world as it was would never change. This rubble is the legacy of that trust. I know you want to save the Imperium, but be careful, Dorian darling. If it crumbles beneath you, be ready to jump.
I always am.
A great example of how the game of Olay's politics can suppress one's true self. There's also Blackwall, who is a Grey Warden.
How do the Wardens deal with archdemons?
Short answer. Stick it with swords until it stops moving.
Wardens are in all the stories. If it was that easy, anyone could do it.
No, it really is that simple. Just because the archdemon is magic doesn't mean it can't be killed with swords. It just has to be a Grey Warden sword.
Sort of. My personal favorite, aside from Liliana of course, has to be Cassandra. How could I not love her hard-ass nature while harboring a love for terrible smut novels on the side?
She's read this one 3 times.
You! I told you to stop spying!
You read it out loud to me. I don't like the captain either.
I never did that!
Absolute cinema, 10 out of 10, peak. Back to the story. In both the Mage and Templar quests, we saw one common thing. Corypheus plans to assassinate Olay's Empress, Salid, so the Empire falls into chaos. Now, normally Olay falling would be a pretty good thing for the entire world, but unfortunately, Corypheus wants to use it as an opportunity to invade Thedas with a demon army. So on one hand, we need to save the Empress, and on the other, we need to deny Corypheus of his demon army, which is where a friend of Varric comes into play.
Inquisitor, meet Hawk, the champion of Kilgore.
Along with an associate, which turns out to be Alistair, Loghain, or replacement Big Mustache Man, Stroud. Now obviously portraying an RPG protagonist as an NPC is a rather tough job, but I think they did a good job with Hawk, bar some goofiness like the strong hatred for blood magic, even if you stay neutral to it in 2.
Please, I have seen more than my share of blood magic. It is never worth the cost.
Still, overall, not a bad job. Back to the story. Apparently all Grey Wardens are being manipulated with a fake calling sign into thinking they are all dying, and they are trying to raise a demon army to sweep through the deep roads and end the Darkspawn altogether before they die. Obviously this is a trap, as once the demon army is raised, Corypheus will simply take control of them. So there's 2 missions at hand, and obviously you can't just do them. You need more power, which can be earned doing more fetch quests and odd jobs across a lot of the other maps, which can now be unlocked. On that note, let's rank the rest of the maps. After the Hinterlands, you have the Storm Coast. This map is mid. Atmospherically, it's peak. The rain and lush vegetated areas contrasting with the seaside, rough waves crashing all the way through. It's ASMR heaven. But content-wise, it's about as rich as my wallet every time Gaben launches a Steam sale. There's like 1 actual side quest total in the whole map, C tier. Next is the Fallowmire. This is a much more linear map with straightforward objectives, so there's not much to talk about here. The atmosphere is great, a bog with rivers full of undead corpses and spirits roaming around. It's fine enough, nothing cumbersome, but nothing special either. B tier. Next is Crestwood. This is a decent map. Atmospherically, it's nothing too flashy, but it's nice looking and even undergoes some changes based on some quests. In general, the side quests here are pretty fun, like finding out the truth about what happened in the town of Old Crestwood, helping a spirit of command to command something so she can leave, finding the powerful and almighty Cheese Shield. Reap as you sow fear among thy enemies' heart, for they who dare look upon thee mighty The fuck am I writing? This map also has some main story relevance because this is where you meet Hawk's associate. Overall, decent map, A tier. The next 2 maps, however you pronounce it, and Emerald Graves, suffer from the same issue as the Storm Coast, although not as bad. They look good and have a good atmosphere, but content-wise are pretty dry, to say the least. There are some exceptions and good locations here and there. For example, the Emerald Graves has this chateau with this whole haunted manor-like quest.
That did not just light itself.
But other than that, both maps are pretty barren and empty. Not as bad as the Storm Coast, but not as good as Crestwood or the Hinterlands either. B tier. Next is Western Approach. Again, a map connected to Hawk and the Warden questline. Beyond that, this is a decent enough map. Atmospherically, well, it's a desert. Not much else to say. There's some fun side quests like helping this professor guy lure and take down a dragon, finding an ancient ritual area with everything seemingly frozen in place by some form of magic. A good map, A tier. After this, we take a nosedive in terms of quality. First of all, there's the Exalted Plains. While atmospherically good, being a post-war-torn area from the Olay Civil War, it's a pain of a map to traverse, filled to the brim with annoying enemy spawns at every turn, and the most boring side quests you can find. It's a damn shame too, because there's so much you can do with a battlefield that just saw some major action, but there's barely anything. D tier. Then there's the Forbidden Oasis. Easily the second worst map in the entire game. Not only is it a bitch to navigate with how awful the game's fall damage and parkour system is, and the map is filled with elevated areas that often need to be climbed up or down to traverse. Atmospherically, well, it's yet another desert. Nothing special. F tier. Now for the absolute worst of the worst. Hissing Wastes. Another desert map. You think the Forbidden Oasis lacked content? This map takes it to a whole other level. It's an actual wasteland, a big empty wasteland.
That is a whole lot of nothing.
Wow, that's so much nowhere.
It deserves its own tier for how terrible it is. So overall, a pretty mixed selection. It's definitely a result of over-ambition. I appreciate the attempt, but it's clear the game definitely didn't need so many damn maps. Moving on with the story. Once you've gained enough power, you can do both of the main story quests. There's no direct order, but based on your prior choices, you will get some additional dialogue if you do one before the other. These 2 quests are what I personally believe are the high points of the main story of DAI. The Warden questline is a tale of tragedy and misfortune as hundreds of people who dedicated their lives for the greater good are manipulated into destroying the world, all the while believing they're saving it. And it's perfectly executed. The sense of scale as the Inquisition's forces attack Adamant Fortress. The bombastic but somber music setting up the melancholic atmosphere brilliantly. The last-second doubts among many wardens about their plans, and the final revelation as Corypheus' hands are finally revealed.
No, 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 no. I am full of sandwich, and I am coming for you!
It's all perfect, all of it, ending with a trip to the Fade and sacrificing either Hawk or the Warden associate, as we finally manage to deny Corypheus his demon army. Now, what's more exciting than an epic battle against heroes being manipulated into committing evil deeds? Or Legion politics? Because who doesn't want to play past the assassin when the entire world is at the risk of being turned into spaghetti? Jokes aside, this is by far one of my favorite missions in the entire game and the overall series. The atmosphere, for one, is amazing, and the music, as usual, perfectly contributes to the mystery and intrigue of the ball. It truly feels like there's something wrong right around the corner, even if things appear normal on the surface. Beyond the brilliant atmosphere, the writing and choices in this quest are also incredibly well presented. Of the three main leaders in question, you can find dirt on each one to coax them into fixing their messes up and do things right, which in turn can lead to the others getting executed, or having all three work together, however risky it might be.
You were three of the best minds in the Empire. You could do so much for Orlais and your people if you stopped fighting.
It is remarkably optimistic to believe that the three of us could ever forget our differences, Inquisitor.
On top of that, you need to stop Corypheus' agent from assassinating the Empress outright, or let her do her job before stopping her, so the others can be given charge instead. There's so many different ways. It's an incredibly well done quest, and without a doubt one of the game's strongest moments. With that done, you not only stop Corypheus from getting his demon army, but also stop Orlais from falling apart so he can't easily attack. Now, you might have noticed something. Corypheus kind of sucks. He has some really good lore and backstory, being one of the Magisters to breach the Golden City in the Fade, to usurp the Maker, only to be tainted as Darkspawn. But as a villain, he's really underwhelming. He legit never wins a single fight in the entire game apart from the Mage Templar questline choice. For one, as we learn in the Fade, the Inquisitor disrupted his ritual, then we escaped his attack in Haven, stopped his demon army, thwarted his attempt to destroy Orlais. Bro's actually a full-blown Bond villain with his comically evil plans that never work. He had so much potential. It's jarring that an ancient Darkspawn Magister trying to gain godhood by taking the Maker's throne in the Fade doesn't feel threatening whatsoever.
Nobody cares.
Now, while Corypheus himself may be lackluster, his followers are where things get interesting. As previously mentioned, based on which faction you save, Mage or Templar, you get either Samson or Calpurnia as a secondary villain. These two are infinitely better handled than Corypheus. They both represent two different ways they are being personally manipulated to help destroy the world, which is a rather common occurrence among Corypheus' followers like Alexius or Florian. But these two in particular are the major highlights in what they represent. Calpurnia is more enigmatic, with her intention to transform the Tevinter Imperium and free slaves to give them equal rights, which of course was a lie because Corypheus had intended on binding and using her as a vessel for his plan instead of letting her do what she wants. Samson, on the other hand, is more straightforward but tragic. A textbook example of the Chantry's mistreatment of the Templars, chipping their minds away with lyrium and throwing them away after their jobs are done. Unlike Calpurnia, Samson knew Corypheus doesn't care about them and instead kept lying to the other Templars that followed him.
They were always going to die. I saw what Corypheus was doing. So yes, I fed them hope instead of despair. I made them believe their pain had purpose, just like the Chantry does. Right, Commander? It ended as well as anything else I've done.
He wanted them all to go out in a blaze of glory, even if it didn't matter in the end, because it was better than inevitably dying all alone facing lyrium withdrawal. Two very different motivations, one common connection, and they're both really well written and portrayed in their quests. Back to the main story. During the ball, Morrigan showed up, and after that she arrives at Skyhold to offer help, along with her son if you perform the Dark Ritual in DAO, who has the best voice acting in the entire game.
No, it would be worse if you couldn't touch magic at all, like being blind.
Darn, just one more page and I would have finished this book.
So, Morrigan claims to know what Corypheus will do next. Attack an old elven ruin in search of an Illuvia, magical mirrors that could give him access to the Fade. So, with all our forces and power, we attack Corypheus' forces at the elven ruin, only to discover the ruin isn't empty.
Were we just attacked by elves? It seems this Temple of Mythal is not deserted after all.
Perhaps these creatures are the reason few return from the Arbor Wilds.
Some ancient elves had been protecting it. We also get to know that Corypheus wasn't looking for an Illuvian at all, but the Well of Sorrows. A magical well that can supposedly give its drinker a lot of elven knowledge, but it may come at the cost of being bound to the will of the elven gods. Well, time to drink. As expected, we do our work before Corypheus can do anything and ruin his plan. Again, if I were him, I'd just fucking give up at this point out of shame. Also, as we leave, a blue lady rises from the well and stops Corypheus. What the hell was she doing in there? Did we just drink someone's bathwater? Anyway, based on who drank the bathwater, either Morrigan proposes that she turn into a dragon, or the Inquisitor tames another dragon called the Guardian of Mythal to fight Corypheus' red lyrium dragon, while we directly deal with him. Also, the writers realize they've pretty much exhausted every way Corypheus could actually be a threat anymore, so they resort to literal nonsense.
It seems Corypheus is not content to wait.
He's in the Valley of Sacred Ashes.
You either close the breach once more, or it swallows the world.
What?
Somehow Corypheus manages to bring back the breach. What was the point of the sacrificial ritual at the beginning of the game if you could just do that on your own? And why did he waste most of his remaining forces trying to reach the Well of Sorrows?
I don't know, and I don't care to know.
So, now we have to race against time to stop him before he succeeds. This is it. All that build-up, gathering allies. This is where it all comes together. One epic final battle to save Thedas, fighting side by side with everyone. It just starts. No calling all your allies, no massive battle. There he is, fight. As much as I love DAI, its final quest is by far the weakest of the series and probably any Bioware game ever. I mean, just compare this to the Battle of Meridian, the Suicide Mission, or Denerim. All of them have a commonality of all your allies showing up to help you with massive set pieces all across before you even get to the final boss. Here it just happens. The arena is also really poorly utilized. I mean, it's set in floating chunks of the Sacred Ashes temple. You could go crazy with a more set piecey battle, but no, it's just a really plain arena with nothing unique. There is a dragon battle in the middle, which is cool, but that's the only part about it that's cool. After that, it's back to fighting Corypheus, who in the final arena has a high chance of just falling to his death. And that's it, you defeat Corypheus, he's gone. This whole final quest just felt rushed and haphazardly thrown together. It could have been so much more. Well, once he's defeated, we celebrate, and the real antagonist is revealed. Now, the game has DLCs, and they're pretty cool. But one that I feel absolutely needs to be discussed about is Trespasser. Overall, I'd say Trespasser is to DAI what Far Harbor was to Fallout 4. A DLC that not only takes most everything that was good about the base game and improves on it, but also takes a lot of criticism into account and fixes them. It's set in the Winter Palace as the Inquisition warms up to peace talks with Olay and Ferelden as tensions grow over our growing military presence, because we don't owe loyalty to either country. It is, however, interrupted when a random Qunari shows up through an alluvion, beaten and bleeding, signifying some big battle. So, off we go to investigate. Using the alluvion, we enter the crossroads. Think of it as a single connection between all the maps. All of them are accessed and unlocked from here. Immediately a big improvement Trespasser has is these relatively big maps that aren't completely open world. They're big enough to give you a sense of scale, but also not short enough to feel claustrophobically small like Mass Effect 2's hallways. Following the trail, we find that the Qunari are about to unleash a plan called Dragon's Breath. Put it bluntly, they're planning to invade the entirety of southern Thedas by killing most of its leadership, by planting Gatlock bombs in crucial areas. Also, their plans are being interrupted by an agent of Fen'Harel who apparently worked with the Inquisition, which means the Qunari are also mad and hostile towards us. I wonder who that agent could possibly be. We also get some additional lore on this Fen'Harel. Prior games have led us to believe that Fen'Harel was a trickster rebel, but as you explore multiple ancient elven ruins through the crossroads, it's revealed that Fen'Harel was trying to free slaves and save them from the tyrant elven gods or the Evenuris. He's also the one that created the veil between the Fade and reality, which is what resulted in all these elven creations falling apart, because they were supported by the Fade's magic. Also, the Inquisitor's mark? Something happened to it, and it's getting progressively worse as we travel through more alluvions. With time running out and the peace talks in jeopardy, the Inquisitor makes one final push to stop the Qunari attack. Once that's done, however, the Qunari themselves make one final push to stop the agent of Fen'Harel they've been chasing, which, to no one's surprise, is revealed to be Solus. Obviously, we can't just let that happen because A. You romanced him, B. You want to kill him yourself, C. He's still your friend and you can't just leave him behind, or the more reasonable D. He's probably the only one who can stop the Mark from killing you. This is a proper finale. The final level of this DLC is everything that DAI's vanilla ending lacked. A proper build-up with balanced hordes of Qunari soldiers systematically thrown at you to fight through to the end. A genuine threat as the mark on your head becomes so unstable that if you don't manually use it in time, it'll go off and deal massive damage to both your party and yourself. All rounded off by one final, actually decent boss battle. And then of course there's the music. I said the music deserves its own individual segment, so this is what I want to talk about. Unlike Origins and 2, Inquisition's score was done by Trevor Morris instead of Inon Zur. While Zur's work was unquestionably amazing on every aspect, giving the Dragon Age universe its signature atmosphere and feel, I think Morris's take is equally riveting in its own way that in many ways even exceeded what came before. It's easily my favorite OST of the series. I've already talked about some examples like Dawn Will Come, Adamant Fortress or the Winter Palace, but it's not just them. Almost every piece in the album is masterfully composed and perfectly fit the scenes they're put in. Brilliantly combining classical orchestral instruments like violins, cellos or French horns with lutes, vocal choirs, synths, among others.
His eyes reflect the heaven stars, the maker's light. My body opens, filled and blessed. My spirit daily housed in flesh, brought to life.
While the rest of the OST is undoubtedly fantastic, there's one that absolutely deserves some extended mention, which is a key part of this DLC, the Dark Solus theme.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's giving me! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
An extended mix of this track plays at the climax of Trespasser that builds and intensifies as you close in on the end. without a doubt Trevor Morris's magnum opus. Nothing comes close to this. So, after all that, we find Solus and learn that he's not some agent of Fen'Harel, but Fen'Harel himself. He plans on tearing the veil down, which would restore the world of the elves but destroy the current world. He was the one who gave Corypheus the orb he was using, because he wasn't powerful enough to open it at that time. He thought when Corypheus would open the orb, the resulting explosion which destroyed the Temple of Sacred Ashes would end up killing him, and he would then use the orb to tear down the veil. Unfortunately, the explosion didn't kill Corypheus, which threw his plans out of the window, which is why he worked with the Inquisition to help stop him. He led the Qunari soldier into the Winter Palace so we can intervene and stop the Queen's invasion and live the rest of our lives freely. He helps one last time by chopping off the Inquisitor's hand with the mark before leaving so it doesn't kill us. Finally, you get a choice to either disband the Inquisition or turn it into a peacekeeping organization under the Divine. And with that, the game finally ends, rather poetically on the same track that played when the Inquisition was first formed. And that was Dragon Age Inquisition. A phenomenal game that, while often suffers from over-ambition, still manages to deliver a unique experience unlike any other. Flawed as it may be, the parts that click really stand tall above everything else in the series. It is undoubtedly my personal favorite Dragon Age, and without a doubt one of Bioware's finest outputs. Now, at the time of making this video, the new entry, Veilguard, had just launched. So what's next for the Dragon Age series and Bioware? Not to be all doom and gloom, the Mass Effect team is still working on Mass Effect 5, so all hope is not lost. And I think it's pretty much given at this point that this is their final shot, else EA pulls the plug. I really hope Bioware pulls through. I haven't been part of their community as long as some others have, but in this short period of time, their games have hit me in a way very few studios have. I really hope so many devs who were unjustly laid off after delivering so many great games find their footing somewhere else. And I really hope Mass Effect 5 turns out to be a big success. A sad note to end the video on, but that's just how things are nowadays, I guess. Thank you all for watching. Like, share and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And as usual, I'll meet you again in the next video.